What's going on, everybody? Hello and welcome to another episode of Criticless Cast. Today we are going to be talking about the 2001 fantasy mystery romance film Vanilla Sky. This movie is starring Tom Cruise, Cameron Diaz, Penelope Cruz, Kurt Russell, Jason Lee, and the list goes on. This is just a few, and there's a strong chance that you have not even heard about this movie. One, because it came out in 2001. Two, because there's some other things. Which kind of brings us into what type of review this is, which is one of our critics loved, audience hated, or audience loved, critics hated. So I guess you can go ahead and try and predict which one this movie is on today's episode of Criticless Cast. Warning. The following show features reviews from wildly unprofessional critics operating without the supervision of professionals. The thoughts and opinions held by these individuals are not to be taken seriously and do not come from a place of intellectual integrity. This show doesn't reflect the opinions of Criticless or its users. Viewer discretion is advised. What's up? What's up? What is up, everybody? Hello and welcome to Criticless Cast. We've got another great episode for you today, and this is part of our cluster of episodes that we are launching for the beginning of the Criticless Cast channel. Now, the first thing that I will say for you to do, if you have not done it already, is to go ahead and download Criticless. It's our app, the platform that we are sponsored by, and my company, which I am the CEO of, which I am clearly an extreme businessman. This is business time. And so what we are going to be doing today is talking about Vanilla Sky, which I prefaced earlier. This is, I will go ahead and let the cat out of the bag, one of my all-time favorite movies friggin' ever. So I'm really excited to talk about this. I'm excited to review it. I think it's going to be fun. And we have a first-time viewer of Vanilla Sky with Mr. Matt Verlack.
What's up, everybody? First time viewer here.
Yep. And Chris Kaus.
Yo.
And so this is going to be fun. I think this is totally different from the other two films that we've reviewed. There is a review of Dune up now, which you should definitely make sure you go check out. And we also have a review of Lisa Frankenstein, not to be confused with Anne Frankenstein.
Very close.
Yeah. More details on that if you go check out our Lisa Frankenstein review. Now you've got me messed up after this last review we did. I want to call it Anne Frankenstein. But yeah, go check out both of those and make sure to like, subscribe, do all those funny things that everyone tells you to do every time. But really, this is the beginning of our channel. And just share our stuff, pass it around, let people know what we're doing. We're really excited. And go to criticless.com and either download the app or check out the web version. We really push for web because, well, Apple and Google, that's all we got to say. But both versions are fantastic, and you can find some of your favorite content creators on there, different YouTubers. There's a lot of folks growing and communities that are happening in Criticless, which is an entertainment reviewing platform that I guess I need to specify here up front. So if you like movies and TV shows and all entertainment as a whole, kind of as a tease for the future of Criticless, then make sure to go ahead and hop on, invest in us early, get in on all this now because we're a new platform and we're growing. A lot of fun stuff happening, and it's just a really cool place to hang out and be. So let's kind of lean into what Criticless is all about, which is giving the people a voice and really focusing in on what regular folks like and enjoy, which is what brings me to our Vanilla Sky review, which is a bit of a tease of what we're going to find out here, which is that this is a critics hated, audience loved movie. And now what I'm getting at here with critics hated is we hone in on Rotten Tomatoes scores with this actual podcast. And so we will focus on what the critics think and what the audience thinks. But the audience being Criticless users, if we currently have enough users that have reviewed it. Now, I think right now, being how obscure Vanilla Sky is, there's not a lot. I think there's like 2. But as the platform grows, obviously there will be more, and you'll get to throw ours into the mix once we throw our reviews into the platform. But we'll go ahead and look at all these scores on all these platforms and stuff at the end, and we'll predict before that happens. So I guess what we need to do is we need to predict what the critics think about this movie. Now, I've given a bit of a spoiler in saying that it is critics hated, audience loved. But how hated is it by the critics? What do you think, Chris?
If for hated by the critics, I'm gonna say
Okay. My heart is leaning towards the 20s.
Ooh.
But I want to give them the benefit of the doubt.
And hope that they're smarter than what they actually are.
And I'm going to put it in the 30s. So I'm going to say 36.
36.
Okay. 36
All right.
from the critics.
So Chris gave it a 36 from the critics.
And I have literally no idea. Like, I've not looked anything up on this whatsoever.
Right.
So,
and
no idea.
I'm not even going to ask you what you think about the audience score just because this is such an obscure one. We can't reference it with Criticless, at least. Now, we will go ahead on this, I guess, and we can guess the Rotten Tomatoes audience score. So what do you think the audience score is going to be for Vanilla Sky?
Audience score, I'm going to at least double it. It's going to be 69.
69.
Nice.
Okay, nice. So that's the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, which, keep in mind, is a good-bad scale. It's either thumbs up, thumbs down. It's very limited as far as how these scores are reviewed and how they work. So it's a little more complicated and not as much gradient as we're dealing with Criticless in our platform. Now, Matt, where do you kind of land on this? This is being that it's your first viewing as well. I'm curious.
Sure.
What you think?
I mean, going in knowing that we were reviewing it because it was a critically hated, audience loved, does sway some of it.
Right.
But I will go ahead and say I think the audience or the critics gave it. I'm going to actually go in the 20s. I'm going to say 25.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know, but that's my guess.
Fair.
It's 25.
Okay.
And then audience-wise, I think I'm going to give it an 80.
An 80.
Ooh.
Okay.
Yeah, be real.
Okay.
It's like a 60-point difference.
Right.
So.
Right. No, I like that. And I'm not going to guess either for this one just because of the type of review that we're in. I know too much about the scores just to even do this review. Well, I would have to do this. Also, I'm a cheater, so,
Fair
That's
on
how I
both
roll.
points.
Yeah. So what we'll do now is we're going to go ahead, now that these guys have given their predictions, and they're going quite low with the difference in what they think, at least where critics are sitting with this. But what we're going to do now is we're going to do a little bit of a spoiler-free review and just let you guys know what this movie is like, let you know a little bit about what you're getting into, and then what we think on a very surface level before we get into the spoilers. And then at that point, you can bail if you want, or you can keep hanging out if you've seen it before. And so really, I mean, I'm kind of just most curious about where Matt sits with this movie because I don't know that I would consider this a Matt movie first and foremost, and it is pushing you outside of your comfort zone a little bit. So Matt, what do you think about it?
All right. So at first, I was like, why the are we watching this? Why is this Blaine's favorite movie? I don't understand my best friend anymore. Something's hit him on the head.
Yeah, he's got something wrong with it.
It took over like 70% of the movie.
Really, that
me
much?
Going like, man, I don't really like this.
Okay.
To me changing my tune, and by the end, and the big reveal and all that jazz, like I did really like it.
Awesome. That makes me really excited.
Yeah. Would I ever watch this again? I don't know.
Right.
Though. With that being said.
Right. And you almost need a little bit of time to marinate after seeing Vanilla Sky. Like, it's not the type of movie that you necessarily need to back it, but like, it does benefit you on repeat viewings, especially if you like it.
So actually, I will say now, I know I'm changing my tune. I think watching it one more time would be beneficial. Now that you kind of know, like, mentally what happens, watching it one more time, you pick up more. Right.
And so what would your recommendation be for people coming into this new as far as what to prepare for? Because obviously the front-loaded bit of this you weren't as hot on.
Sure.
So kind of as a warning to people coming in.
Sure. You just have to go in kind of knowing that it's a bit of a rom-com.
Right.
It's
and a little slow to start.
It's this cheesy romance movie, and I don't like romance movies.
Right. Well, it comes across as that.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You have to go in thinking this is a romance movie.
Right.
If you prepare yourself mentally, like, oh, this is 500 Days of Summer or something like that.
Right.
Then you could be like, okay, I'm mentally prepared, and then to prepare yourself, there's a sci-fi twist.
Right. Oh, and another thing that I didn't bring up is that this movie is directed by Cameron Crowe. Now, this plays, I think, a bit of a role into what happened to this in theaters and critically. We can get into that later. But if you know anything about Cameron Crowe, then his previous movies, his early ones, were films like Fast Times at Ridgemont High and Say Anything, two of the, like, 80s greats.
Classics.
Absolute 80s classics. And then he follows it up with freaking Jerry Maguire, Almost Famous, and then goes on to do Elizabethtown. Like, this guy is known for...
Back to back. To back.
Yeah.
To back.
He's known for bangers, and he's known for things that are what I would consider to be more predictable films. More of a simple nature. Sure. And I don't want to get into that too much because I really don't want to spoil anything about Vanilla Sky. I think the less you know about it, the better. Just know that when you're coming into it, that it is a romance movie in a sense, but there is much more to it. But Chris, where are you sitting now? Because, I mean, we saw this together back in the day when we were kids. Where are you now?
And that was literally the last time that I had seen it. It's not a annual go back to it like I have with some movies. Right. So I had no expectations going into this. I thought I knew what it was about.
Right.
Was about?
Well, because it's probably been like 20 years since we've seen it.
Yeah. Just about.
Right.
Yeah,
probably 16 to 20.
Yeah, we're not.
We're ancient.
Right. We're
Look at me.
young.
I'm a businessman. I'm clearly at least like 50 years old.
True.
So
facts.
And
I've
seen your dad, and I know your dad. And
don't say I look like him.
Well,
yeah, I mean he pretty much just shit out another copy of himself.
Yeah,
it's
pretty much.
It's a shame. Yeah,
but this movie, like, I think I appreciate it more having not seen it in so long because the plot behind it, it's a time-released masterpiece.
Right.
So I think, I don't know, or we're not at the point where
we're not in spoilers, but just your opinion of it now.
Opinion of it now is it is like I said, a time release, so you do have to be patient with it. It's not going to be an immediate hit you in the face entertainment bubble, but if you give it time, it's going to pay off for sure in the long run. So.
Yeah, no, I definitely get what you're getting at there. And like I said earlier, like this is one of my favorite films of all time. I'm really trying to decide where I rank this on a critical scale. It is obviously most excellent for me. I am sitting somewhere within like a 99% to 100% range. Like this is, I adore this movie. Like you said with Masterpiece, I truly believe that this movie is a masterpiece. I think it is highly underrated. I don't think nearly enough people have seen it. And I think that Tom Cruise gives off the fucking performance of a lifetime. I try to think about everything that I've seen Tom Cruise in, and I have never seen him act his ass off in the way that he does in this movie. I mean, obviously he does, his Mission Impossible movies and all of these action things, but like this is a range in which we rarely get to see this man, and he is exposing himself in a way that we don't really, and just getting weird. Like Tom Cruise gets weird in this movie.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
And I mean, really, also all the other cast, everybody that's in the film, whether it be Penelope Cruz, who is absolutely adorable in this movie. I mean, she is the freaking.
Yep.
She's great. And Cameron Diaz gives off a chilling performance that was not what she was known for at this time. And just everybody shows up. Everybody shows up to this movie, and I do think it's a masterpiece, and I highly, highly, highly recommend it if you have not seen it. And I would also follow that up by saying, if you haven't seen it, do not continue to our spoilers section until you've watched this movie, because once we get into spoilers, this movie's toast. Far as ruining it for you. Yeah. Because when the reveal happens, it's just so huge, and it's really hard to predict. So.
Agreed.
I think now we should probably go ahead and get into spoilers because it's going to be too hard to talk about at all without getting into them. Yeah. So, all right, guys, bail now. Spoilers all the way down. We're getting to the nitty gritty. You were warned. All right. So, Matt, I really do want to come back to you because this is your first viewing. Like, I want to know, obviously we know that you thought it was slow to start and you were a little worried.
I just don't like rom-coms, and it was all just googly eyes and chasing skirts.
Right.
Like he starts off with Cameron Diaz, and then his best friend shows up with another girl, and he's chasing skirts, and he's like, oh, I'm the CEO of a company, but I'm a cool dude.
I'm a surfer bro.
I'm so cool. I've got rich things. and then it's just him chasing skirts, and then you get the teaser that he's.
I mean, he's really. One could say he's exuding real Blaine energy in this movie. You know
I knew you'd say. He's just like, this is what Blaine tries to be.
Just like. I'm the cool CEO out here just surfing the Poontown Highway.
Let me just call Sydney real quick. Hold on.
Cut that.
Hello. Yeah, is he...
No.
Poontown
Highway.
King?
Yeah.
Oh, Highway.
Highway.
Sorry, is he the Highway...
Yes, Highway
King?
Master.
Master
yes.
of the
Poontown.
Highway.
Yes. She said yes? No, she didn't say that?
You shouldn't go home.
No, don't go home.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've got a spare couch. You can stay here. Cool.
All right, so anyways, back to you, Matt.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that part dragged on for a long time, I felt. And then you started getting into, like, the car wreck. And when I started really becoming engaged was when you couldn't tell what was the truth.
Real.
And so, like, Xena and I were watching it together. We both haven't seen it before.
Right.
And so we were both kind of, like, making guesses.
And I'm sure at that point, that's when you're like, okay, now I see why Blaine has hyped this up for the past, like, however long that we've known each other, 12 years or whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
and so we were just making guesses, and things weren't happening, and some of the acting felt a little weird. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, I don't know. And then, the big reveal happens, and I was like, oh, okay.
Right.
It's all making sense. Like, our big guess the whole time was that he was still in a coma from the wreck.
Right. Which is a very kind of predictable guess, right?
It is predictable. I mean, it is technically not far off.
Not far at all.
But the thing that makes it so great, the reveal here, is that it keeps feeling like there is some level of predictability. Like, you're like, clearly he's, like, asleep, or he's, he's in a coma, and then when the reveal drops, you're just like, oh, shit. And they've been telegraphing this to me the whole movie, and I didn't see it still.
Yeah.
But, Chris, so I guess even at this return viewing, you probably clearly didn't remember, so it was still like a surprise.
Clearly. My memory, as we all know, is doo-doo.
It's poopy.
No, this was like a brand new movie to me.
Oh, really? You didn't remember the reveal at all?
None at all for the reveal. No, I do appreciate it. It was a very, like, staggered reveal as far as, well, not even a reveal necessarily, but just, like, how they release information to you. So, like, it would be incremental, just spurts of information.
Right, because they're teasing you early on that he murdered somebody.
Right.
And you're like, what the fuck happened to this dude?
So he's in prison, he's got a mask on, you're like, oh, he's still fucked up, oh, he did something terrible.
Right.
And that continues throughout. It's not even like the last half, it's not even the last quarter, it's like the last 15 minutes of the movie.
Right.
Before you figure out exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
Like, it can lead you on so much to where you can predict, any number of things. But it's just so good at, like, delaying gratification.
It is. And the reveal is so gratifying, like, and it's not disappointing either. Which, and we can come back to the very end. I think, at least for me, it's not. And we had a lot of more in-depth conversations when we got to the end of this movie, as far as how to analyze it. Because really, I mean, you've got a 2-hour and 15-minute movie here, and your first what's front-loaded. Granted, you're getting teased to this murder.
Yeah.
Is that it's the very first bit is kind of like you said, a little goofy, a little happy-go-lucky. You've got the best friend. You've got the cheesy, CEO that's just like, yeah, I'm the best. And he's just, poontowning it. And then, all of a sudden you get this pivot and it's like, oh, this shit's depressing. Like this, what happened to this man? Like, I have a totally different view of this person now.
Yeah. Yeah. You know my biggest beef with this movie?
I want to hear it.
Tell me.
Tom Cruise's single middle tooth.
Brother, that's the first thing I wrote down to my notes is literally, I can't stop staring at his singular middle tooth.
Same. It kept popping up.
It did. And it was like they were obsessed with it.
Well, because he kept just being like smiling, and you just see his front single tooth. And I just kept being like, man,
And I've never noticed it in the way that I did in this movie.
I agree.
And I almost feel like it was intentional because there is a bit in which, like, when he's spiraling, where that single middle tooth is unsettling. Because it's like he's just being so crazy and showing it, and he's just like, "Rah," and you're just like, Jesus. I didn't realize Tom Cruise could be this freaking insane. Like, outside of when he jumped on the couch on Oprah. Like, I don't know if I've ever seen him this unhinged.
Yeah, I can't think of another movie where he was equally unhinged.
He shows up. I mean,
you got something, Chris?
What did you think about his acting in this, Chris?
No, I think it's great. I think that plays into it because so much of this movie is a dichotomy of, like, whenever he was getting after the accident. This is spoiler free, right?
Yeah, there's no spoiler on.
You're
okay,
good.
so like after he got into his accident, and the doctor's like, "Oh, this is for vanity," and he's like, "No, this isn't for vanity. I want to fix my headaches."
Right.
So like there is, I feel like there is a continuity through the entire movie of just the balance of being something for vanity. So that's where, like, they don't care about showing. And honestly, if I were to be completely honest, I don't think that is something that is in their mind at all, as far as Tom Cruise having a singular
front tooth.
One front tooth.
Maybe not that specifically, but I think the unsettling nature of that face that he could make.
Yeah. And so it's that balance of just, like, caring whether or not, like, how you look, the vanity portion of it, and who you are. But then they also mix in the uncertainty of, is this a dream or is this reality? Which I can relate with.
in your regular life, you're just like, is this real?
It's me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like,
real life.
Well, honestly, that is true, because you're regularly like, I had a dream. Like, did this happen, or did we actually do this thing?
Right.
And my memory is so bad that you're like, I remember this thing, and I'm like, I feel like this was another dream, Chris. And you're like, no, I would remember this. You're a piece of shit. And I'm like, well, you're probably right. I am a piece of shit. So
I'm not going to argue with that.
Right.
But yeah, because I can confuse reality with dreams so often, because I know, Blaine, you don't really have dreams that often. I know
not that I remember. I don't typically remember.
They don't stick with you.
No, they don't. And I really don't want you to tell me about a dream. Like, if you've had a dream, keep it to yourself.
Boring thing.
Keep it to yourself. I do not want to know. I would honestly rather go full blown Lisa Frankenstein and murder you and bury you in the graveyard.
What about Anne
Frankenstein? I would go full Anne Frankenstein on you.
Mute?
Yes, deaf, mute, and bludgeon you to death before listening to your dreams.
I haven't heard about that part, but
that would
watch that movie.
Yeah,
for sure.
Because I don't want to hear your dreams.
I'm telling you,
I don't care. Whatever your dreams are, don't want to know them.
Yeah. So I can relate with it to that point, to where there's a confusion, which is kind of scary. Like, I'm not going to be manly man here over here. Like,
well,
I have a fear of just, like, conflating reality with dream. Of to, like, because the way that I wake myself up from some dreams is not necessarily copacetic with how society works. So
what do you do to wake yourself up from dreams, Chris?
I fuck myself in the ass.
I was not expecting that at all.
I was gonna be like
left field. I was really
well. That's the tame version. Of what I do. There's other versions of how I wake myself up, but
I've never woken myself up from a dream.
Really?
Not in that way.
Man.
Never. No, I do try to wake myself up sometimes, because I'm just like, this is. But I regularly
know it.
I will regularly know I am dreaming and be like, it is time to wake up. I don't want this anymore.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Exactly.
Yeah. Which clearly happens to Tom Cruise as well, because he hit a point where he was like, I need tech support right now. I imagine that's what you do, but it's the butt stuff. That's your way of calling for tech support.
Yep. You nailed it. For sure. No, I appreciate this movie so much just because the release is so far into it. Like, I feel like a lot of movies these days, or even in the past 5-7 years, it's just like they'll give you the goose before the gander. That's not even a saying. But you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, it's implied.
Yeah.
But like,
they're kind of telling you, they're telegraphing you what's going on.
yeah, but
and-
like halfway through. So they'll
Right.
wait halfway through the movie, and then they'll give you the reveal.
Right. Yeah.
So, but this one, it literally waits until
You go to
like,
the last freaking moment. Like,
there's 15 minutes
Yeah.
at most
Yeah.
left in the movie, and they're like, surprise, motherfucker.
yeah,
He's
gotcha.
in a dream this whole time.
And not just a dream, but like he is in a
lucid
cryogenic chamber. Like, what did you think about all that, Matt?
Yeah, he was in a cryo death. I thought it was. He's just basically Fry from Futurama.
right, right. A bit.
This is what happens. This is what Fry's actually dreaming about in
antithesis
Futurama.
of that, but
right.
yes.
Well, and their
But-
lucid dream option is super cool.
And scary, apparently.
Right. Well, yeah.
Could you imagine just being trapped in your brain, just having a nightmare that you can't
It's like,
escape,
Yep.
That's my life.
but you don't know if
Yeah.
it's happening,
Yep.
and
Right.
you don't know if
Yeah,
you're...
I might stab y'all in the throat right now, just
to wake
because
up.
It could be a dream.
Tech
Could be dreaming
support.
right now.
You know,
If
you
he
better,
starts
you
doing
better
the-
start calling tech support over
This
there.
is when he
Hold
starts doing the butt
You
stuff
better,
right
uh,
now.
Put something
Tuck your
in my
dick.
ass. I'll find something. It'll fit. Anything will fit.
Yeah, it's really, there's a lot to unpack when you get to this end here, because it's like we're touching on simulation theory, if you're familiar with that.
Yeah.
Like what is life in reality? There is so much that this character goes through, and to be such a happy-go-lucky person, and then for things to go so dark, and then you find out not only did his life go this dark, but what happened was that was real. Like when his life went that dark, it was really happening to him, and he blacks out in the street after basically having a terrible experience with the person that he believes is going to be the love of his life,
That I met once.
that he met one time. And,
That's what she says.
right.
It
that's
was more
what
than once.
Right, right. We do think they met, yeah, technically they met twice.
There was the party, and then he was at her house.
At her house.
Wasn't
they
that
did.
the following day?
Yes, but two separate
two-
Okay.
occasions.
Yeah. So, I mean, kind of, yeah, it's an interesting thing, though, and it speaks a lot to this character and this man, to where it's like he never met somebody that meant this much to him, that he saw this much in this person, and just how sad it is to think about, that there are people that live their lives, and as happy of lives as they appear on the outside, that it is sometimes very dark. And then, you can have an event like this happen, and it's all ripped away from you, and you lose your complete identity because of a terrible event. And in this case of the character David, like, he chooses to kill himself and cryogenically freeze himself because it's better than being disfigured and having the awful life that he has. And I find that to just honestly be extremely compelling because of where the end actually goes to the movie.
Yeah.
Which is that last little bit there.
Right.
Right? Because what we find out is that, he did kill himself, but they tell him, they're like, hey, David, not only is it 150 years or whatever in the future, we can fix your face, but you're not going to have a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I guess the question also I want to ask you guys is, if you were David, do you go back into the dream and stay cryogenically frozen and continue to live with Penelope Cruz, clearly one of the most stunning and wonderful human beings on the planet?
Well, especially
Or do you wake
this
up?
movie, like with her just being so
she's so-
happy-go-lucky, like that instantly adds like a whole new level of attractiveness to her.
Oh, yeah.
To answer your question,
Yeah.
I think I would wake up. Just because I've seen so many episodes of Futurama.
Keep coming back to Futurama.
Well, yeah, this is basically a knockoff Futurama.
Right. Oh, yeah. Totally ripped it off.
I think I would choose to wake up and go experience what the future was like. Because just think about what 150 years from now would be.
Right.
Think about 150 years ago.
Right.
They didn't even have cars then, right? That was like
Correct.
1870.
Yeah.
If I'm mathing that correct.
Before airplanes, before cars.
Well, just think that
Right.
we have computers in our pockets.
Well, and the world that David is in is actually more futuristic than where we are currently. So, because they obviously have cryogenic freezing and cloning whatever the Benny the dog situation is.
It was just frozen.
Frozen
Yeah,
back
yeah.
from being frozen.
Yeah, probably.
But-
But what he's currently experiencing, as far as being able to interact with people's subconscious as they are frozen. Actually, he was dead. Like,
Yeah,
he
that's the thing, is he was
died,
dead.
and they were able to maintain his
Resurrect him.
consciousness
Right.
after the fact that he was dead. So that's
Right.
a whale beyond where we are currently.
Yeah, it is
Moby
definitely.
Dick.
That we know of.
It is. That size and scale beyond us currently. So Chris, would you wake up if you were him?
I think it would take me a few rotations.
Right.
I think I would hang on and want to maintain, because like if anybody's been in love, let's get real deep real quick. But I mean, like if it was the person that I was in love with, and especially if there was somebody telling me like, oh hey, you know that great, not that I am not a rich person, I don't have a lot of money, so like that lifestyle isn't something that I can relate with. But if that was, which is the case for Tom Cruise's character,
right.
of his personality and where he enjoyed throwing parties, he could do whatever the fuck he wanted to.
You get to have the most lavish life ever.
Yeah.
Indefinitely.
Money wasn't a thing for him. Right. So, like, having that as a stipulation as not being a factor, because obviously inflation after 150 years, just like $1 150 years ago was like, holy shit. Like,
I mean, that was pretty much like 4 years ago.
Also, very true.
Gotcha.
2019 was a great year.
It was. Dollar was worth a lot more than it is right now.
Way.
So you think a couple rotations, and then
I think I would have hung on to wanting to be with who I loved.
Right.
And in that environment to where I could be with him. But it's also kind of like a creepy thing.
Right.
You're just dating your memory.
Right. But it's an obsession.
Yes.
Like, you know.
But like they weren't married.
Right.
Not that like marriage is the end all of it all. But like, but not even like marriage is like the furthest over here, like where you're making a commitment with somebody that you love.
Technically, if you want to call it that.
So it's somebody that you're fantasizing about. So
and
like
I mean, he never got to see her boobs in real life, but in the dream, boobs.
He sure dreamt
he is that mole.
The mole. He is literally the mole.
He's the mole man.
So he is the mole man. I mean, yeah, I think I would wake up as well. I find just the messaging here to be really lovely by the end. Like it really, I don't know. There's something really special about it to me that, you know, we get this messaging from Jason Lee, which shout out to Jason Lee, like great in this movie. He was so good. And he was just the best kind of friend. And, you know, there's the scene when the two of them are riding in the car together right before they almost die by getting hit by the truck.
Sure.
And he's like, you know what's really sad is he's like, your life flashed before my eyes. And I was like, I literally looked at Sid and I was like, that sounds like some smart ass shit Chris would say. That was literally what I said to her. Because that is some smart ass shit you would say. But like, yeah, it was just really funny. But it really spoke a lot to Jason Lee's character and how much he was like, look, like, I envy you, but you're my best friend, and I'm writing this book about you. And he stayed perpetually the best friend for David. Sure. And there was something really special about that character, and I really liked him a lot. And then the fact that he kept trying to tell David, like, it's the bitter or sour and the sweet, right? It's the sour and the sweet. And he just kept telling David this. And David just wasn't getting it.
Yeah.
And it literally took David going through basically limbo, going through the afterlife of continually hearing it's the sour and the sweet for David to be like, to get the messaging from tech support. Tech support had to say, look, like you're getting the sour with the sweet. You lose your money, but you're going to be handsome. Like, can you do what you did in this life, in that life?
Can you
nothing.
be happy?
Can you be happy with nothing?
Right.
And David finally took the messaging of the sour and the sweet, and he was like, you know what? Like, I'm going to go past my biggest fear. I'm going to jump off this building, and I'm going to wake up. And there's something super special about that to me.
Yeah, and I think as a romantic, I would look at it even more so than the money. Just like giving up the person that you fantasize. Obviously, in his condition, like it is more of a like weird, like you're obsessing over somebody that you only met twice, like Matt had said. But you know, if I were to take that just from the broad spectrum of just like love and like this is true love and he really cared for this person, that I feel like that is a harder give up than the money,
right?
Like, because especially being told that like you're not, $200 million 150 years from now.
Right.
It doesn't equal the same. Just
No.
like $150, 150 years ago from where we are now, doesn't equal the same thing now. So I feel like the emotional portion of that is more impactful for me.
Right. For sure.
Just as
Because that is his sacrifice as well.
because obviously she's dead.
She's the biggest part of his
She
sacrifice.
doesn't fuck. Like,
Right.
Oh.
she's been dead for
Yeah.
probably 70 years
Right,
at
at
least,
least.
because it's been 150 years since he died.
And his best friend. You
Yeah.
know? I mean, it's like his best friend Brian is dead. Everybody that he knows.
Right.
Yeah.
So
is
he's
gone.
going into reality.
A new world.
With none of those anchors that we can all hold on to just from birth, as far as people that we can rely on. Not everybody. I don't want to fucking defend myself or my stance to this extreme, but obviously there are outliers. But most people have a basis for their life that is either familiar or with family or
Right.
with friends,
Mm-hmm.
to where there is a relationship so that they
Right.
can base something off of, and that means something to them. Obviously,
Well,
there are
and
some
I think that's the thing with David too, is that he was living such a, whether he realized it at the time or not, a very superficial life.
yeah,
And I think that this was his chance to not be superficial. And
Right.
and this was and now granted, this was 2 years after the Matrix, but this is a very red pill blue pill moment.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and
Yeah.
he chose to wake up, and I think that's super rad. And I guess Matt, as a big Matrix fan, like, did that resonate here with you? Like, did that click?
Oh yeah, 100%. Well, that's also when I was thinking about it after the fact. He was in the puppy love stage, right? And so he
Which is always
captured
special.
that. It's always special. Like anybody that's in that puppy love stage, like they may not realize it at the moment, but later on, like that's a special stage. But it's where you're most emotionally attached to somebody based on kind of the looks and their just initial personality.
Right.
And that's where this movie really keeps driving it towards.
Right.
Is that he's emotionally attached.
Right.
And you see him growing because
And he was immature.
He was immature. And because, he was just head over heels over his
Man child.
friends, best friend's girl, basically. And he literally had to create
Right.
a dad figure in
Right.
his mind to help him kind of get past that on top of his own deformity. And so it's kind of like all that comes together. And so it's like Fry being frozen in the thing, or Neo
Right.
in the pod still. Like it's all very much the same in
Right,
my
it's
mind.
in-
Like
it's
it's
in the
like
same
what does the
family.
brain do when you're like frozen?
Right.
And his was growing.
Right, and
He
that's
was
the thing.
learning.
Yeah, if you're the type of person that can mature or not, right?
Right.
Can you move past these things? And that was the thing that I think that I liked the most about this movie. Well, one of the things that I like about it is that, regardless of, there's plenty of ways that they could have painted Tom Cruise's character. You don't hate him. Even as you're going through, and even as he kills Cameron Diaz, which, holy crap, talk about disturbing. That scene when he is just like, they are just boning into oblivion.
Yeah.
And that reveal, and the fact that you're like realizing that he killed Penelope Cruz after all that back and forth, like, and even though it wasn't real, like,
Right.
in his mind he killed her in this dream state, that scene was just very kind of dark and disturbing, but also something about it was like, oh, okay, like we're getting to the meat and potatoes. Like this is the point where the movie pivots, and we're
Right. This is finally where we're about to
yeah.
get the reveal.
We've been hearing about a murder for like 2 hours,
Yeah.
and now this is the murder. But like the fact is that like there are plenty of creators, plenty of directors and writers who would have made us hate David. But this movie chose not to. It wanted us to relate with a, billionaire, one of the richest people on the planet, and they did a proper job of it, I think. And he still had a very human struggle. And even though he was living a very unrelatable life,
yeah,
we were able to kind of become grounded with him. And I think that that's something that makes it really special.
Yeah.
And I just do. After seeing it again, I love it. And it was funny because watching the scene where they are having sex and we find out that he, killed her or whatever. Like Sydney was sitting there when we were watching it together, and she was like, "I hate this so much." She's like, this is I have dreams sometimes where I'm not with you, and it's like a nightmare, and like I'm trying to get out and I can't escape it. And it's one of those things where it's like, I think that this movie does capture a lot of people's fears, and but I think that the way that they ended it is just so superb, and how they chose to handle it.
Yeah, I mean, it's I feel like it's 100% most people's fears. Like, it covers a large gambit of either like lost love, lost wealth, lost purpose, like the way
lost identity.
Yeah, because and if you think about it, like, to just say that Tom Cruise is also me, you would have to at least go through this a few times. Like, it's been 150 years.
Right.
That's not one life.
Right. He might have done this multiple times.
He
probably did.
Guaranteed he went through it. Unless time slows down.
Well,
but there's no...
I think time slows down, but they also said it was a bug. Or it was a glitch.
Right.
That wasn't supposed to happen.
Right.
So that means a glitch would have had to have happened multiple times.
Right.
Or he's just reliving the same life over and over again.
He's replaying, because every time you die, you restart at that point, is what they were saying in the advertisement. If he's choosing to die. Yeah,
you don't necessarily
as long
have to
as
choose
he's
to.
not choosing to escape the reality.
Right.
So, like, I feel like in 150 years, he probably... I'm imagining that it is happening in real time. Okay, so just imagine dreams.
Yeah.
They happen... I've had dreams, not to get too deep here, but, like, I've had night terrors or dreams that have been almost entire reality.
Right, they feel like a lifetime, and it happens in like 5 minutes.
Yes, and it's all happened, and I've had multiple of them in one single night that have happened in one sitting. Right. So that's an 8-hour period at best.
Right. So you're probably right. He probably did do this many times, or he just kept living. Maybe he was reliving this cycle of having the best life ever, and we didn't. We saw when the bug happened. Right.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Right. I can see that.
He's gone through this so many times where it's gone out fine, but now finally, like, something's happened with his brain, or
it's probably just that he's realized, like, this is not right.
Yeah, like, because it's not reality, which is what he inevitably chooses, is to live real life, because, me and T. Cruz, we can relate on a lot of things.
Of course. I mean, y'all are basically the same person. I mean, outside of the whole Poontown thing, that's me and his thing. That's not y'all's thing. You're like the Scientology. Like, just being mentally insane, liking to jump on furniture and talk shows. That's all you.
Love.
Yeah. That's
me, for sure.
That makes
sense. I would do that. Oprah?
Oh, yeah.
If she ever has me on her show. That doesn't exist anymore.
She has like a network now.
Yeah.
You can be on the network.
Yeah, but it's oxygen. I don't breathe oxygen.
No, that's true.
Totally different. No, but I have no idea where I was going with that. We got completely sidetracked.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. I mean, really, the one thing I did want to bring up that we have not brought up as well is not only the soundtrack, but the score, both of which for this film, banger after banger after banger through this whole thing. It's REM, it's Sigur, it just keeps going. And then we have the actual score itself, which is brilliant. I mean, it's just these little guitar ditties, and like it just pulls on your heart, which, and granted, I've seen this many times, but like now it's like I could literally every scene, it had probably been 10 years since I've seen this. And I was still just like, every scene was just like humming the song in my head. I'm just like, oh, this just like, I forgot how much this means to me. It was so nostalgic to come back.
Yeah.
How did you feel about all the songs and
I didn't notice them.
Oh, you didn't really?
I noticed some songs. I was like, oh, I recognize this.
Right.
Like, I recognized REM.
Right.
But for the most part, I was just like, this is music from the 90s.
Right.
That I've heard a lot over the time. So for me, it didn't add or detract anything from it. But I'm not also a big, like, movie buff in movies, or music buff in movies,
right?
Like, I'm not normally like the one like, oh, this soundtrack is blowing my mind, kind of deal. Now, maybe if I watched this a couple more times and had a little more invested in it emotionally, maybe then I would start, drawing those connections.
Right.
So
for sure,
I am that person, and this movie doesn't hit that.
It doesn't. So. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, there are some good songs that they have in there, but it's not like. hit you in your soul kind of
Oh,
a soundtrack.
Right.
Not for me personally.
And part of it for me and the soundtrack and score for this is probably a lot of nostalgia, but which granted it did hit your wife the same way, who has never seen this before.
Yeah, I was about to say it hit her very much as it hit you.
It's a lot of Bob Dylan, it's REM, it's it's a lot of music from not only our time but even a little bit before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
We're that old.
Yeah, we are that old. And I mean, actually, one of our users as well, Quantum Ego, he, like, one of the first things he did when Matt's wife reviewed this was he just started talking about the soundtrack. And he feels the same way. It was like, he's the same way with me, where, like, this soundtrack lived in my CD player, and then after the CD player, it lived on my Zune. Yes, I was a Zune person. Screw you, Apple people. Y'all can eat a butt. We were Zune bros. We were Zuning it up.
Yeah,
and... yeah, I've listened to this soundtrack so many times.
Yeah.
And so hearing it and seeing it again was just like, oh man, this is like special. And clearly, even if you haven't seen it before, if you're from that time period and into this type of music, it'll hit a certain way for sure.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we've really covered a lot of this. Obviously, you could get into a lot of deep philosophical discussions about this movie. You could really dive in, but it's like, we've kind of covered a lot of the surface level stuff. Do you want to go ahead and see what the critics thought about this movie?
Yeah, real quick.
Yeah.
Just one other thing that
Sure.
I have to mention is Cameron Diaz is the perfect cuckoo crazy girlfriend lover.
Yes.
Yeah.
She fills that role flawlessly. Like, it's
so good.
Spectacular.
And I don't know that I've ever seen her do a role quite like this.
Yeah, no, not to where, like, she's the air quotes bad person.
Right.
Like,
yeah,
she
I don't
can
ever
be
seek out her
crazy,
movies,
but-
so it's like
Right.
I don't.
She was the bad guy in his life. I mean, and it's funny because actually, our friend Jeremy, I Miss Good Movies, within the platform as well, we have had discussions about this movie, and he refuses to watch it because it actually reminds him, this character reminds him so much of someone looks-wise, actions-wise, so much. Yes, no.
It's me.
Cameron Diaz's character. So much that he literally like can't cope with watching it anymore because
that's some trauma right
it
there.
is some
bro.
full-blown trauma. So much love, bro. Been there.
Bro,
I actually, well, no, I won't say anything about any of that, but I get it. It happens, man. Happens to the best of us.
We probably all have some girl that fits into that.
Listen, are we going to be sexist here, Chris? Are you going to take it there?
Well, I haven't dated any guys, so
I've seen your outfits.
Listen, everyone listening here, the butt stuff, like they thought you were talking about a dude.
No,
now
it's a woman pegging me for sure. Like, I'm not gay. I just like chicks pegging me. What are you talking about? That's not gay.
Just a woman with a penis. Come on.
Anyways,
yeah.
No, I think we can all relate to a certain degree of psychosis from people that we've dated.
Right, specifically
of any
women.
gender.
No, just women. Let's be honest.
Only women. Hold on. Zoom in a little bit. Only women are
this level of insane. No, it is. It is definitely a personality type, and I mean, it's kind of like it's a stereotype. It's kind of like the controlling man that is, you know.
He also fits into a stereotype
he
as
does.
men of being the rich dude that
runs through chicks, and it's like the caricature that she did of him, surrounded by all the women. He's got the big cheesing mouth, and it's like, you know, of course he saw her this way, and she saw him this way,
right? And he even said that he has like a what's the word? It's like a
it's
plan
a problem. He's Citizen Dildo.
True,
which is the best nickname
doesn't
ever.
make any sense really. Like, I'm trying to relate it with like Citizen Kane, but like,
no, he's just literally it's like being Community Dildo. It's just that everyone uses him. He's the community pogo stick. He's, you know, that's who he is. Right. But
yeah, he literally says that like he has a strategy. It's not the right word. He says something else in the movie, but essentially a strategy for dealing with women. Like, he says that to his psychologist in his fake dream world. Yes. Whereas like he would
delayed gratification kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like he had a plan, a strategy for how he interacted with women. So like I feel like anybody who has that,
you got a little bit of a problem.
I was about to say no offense, but I don't give a fuck if you're offended. Like, if you have a strategy dealing with women, then
you're kind of a douche.
Fuck you. Yeah, like you should just be yourself.
Right.
Anyways,
which is why he needed to go through this growth, obviously.
Yeah.
Like he had problems.
For sure.
And so yeah, it's just there's so much here to unpack and dig through that it's honestly pretty impressive. And you know, I guess we'll see what the critics have to say and see if you guys were right as far as if the critics, which clearly we feel like the critics, whatever they gave it, are probably not, in our opinion, justified for bombing this movie compared to what the audience thinks, right?
So, real quick,
Yeah.
Matt, I don't know if we got a straight answer. Did you enjoy this movie?
Yeah.
What would you rate it as?
I think I'll give it a high rad.
High rad. Okay, so you're not in the most excellent territory.
So, like,
I don't
65.
think so. It's too rom-com, even with like the payoff at the end.
Really? Well, it's not really a
Okay,
There's some funny moments.
you're right, actually.
Or too
Just
romance.
No com.
Or, yeah.
Yeah, I think that was kind of like...
Well, there is some funny stuff in this movie. I actually laughed quite a bit.
There are a couple funny things. I mean, I wasn't saying this is... I probably laughed as much in this as I did in Lisa Frankenstein.
Right, so you're somewhere in the 70s.
Just because I laugh in the movie. I think I'd be like a 79.
Okay.
Like, it would be right on the cusp.
right on the cusp.
I could even see doing an 80.
Like a low most excellent.
That's most excellent.
Yeah.
79.
70 is
Which
nice.
is like, it's clear he liked it, it just wasn't perfect.
Yeah.
An 80 is a most excellent.
Oh, I
Yeah.
thought it went
So maybe I would give it an 80
Yeah. Just that low
because
80.
I would watch it again
Right.
at least one more time for...
The payoff is worth the
payoff.
ride.
Yeah.
And that is the thing about it, is even with the slow burn, I think for almost anyone, this ride is worth it in the end.
Yeah.
every 10 years. Just watch it every 10
Right.
years. You might forget about the plot a little bit.
I mean, I had
It
even
makes it
with
better.
how many times I had seen it, I had already forgotten some of it. And
Right.
like Sid was asking me questions I like didn't want to answer, obviously for spoiler reasons, but also I was like, I'm not sure if I remember. Like, I don't even know if I really know the answer to this.
Yeah.
Well, because it does twist and turn a good
So much.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
much. So let's see here. The critics gave it a 43%.
Okay.
So actually,
close?
Chris was the closest.
Yep.
Oh.
You guessed a
You 36.
36.
Oh.
Yeah.
Were you lower
He
than
did
me?
a 25.
I did.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, Matt gave it a
All
25.
right, of course, I'm the winner.
And now
Wow.
with the audience rating, they gave it a 72% on Rotten Tomatoes. Now with Criticless, we only have about 7 people, but which I was just experimenting
Not on the
with
whole
rating here.
platform, but just
Yeah, we only we have that many people in the
Yeah.
entire platform. We've only
it's
had
us 3 and 4 other people.
yeah. We've only had 4 other people review it so far, but it's sitting at a 69. So
Nice.
it's still in the rad. It's not upper rad, but
Awesome.
69.
Guys,
Yeah, and you did, Chris, actually guess 69 for audience score. So, yeah, I'll give you that. Now, granted, the Rotten Tomatoes audience was a 72, but
Oh,
yeah. Now, we did have someone
still close.
full-blown bomb this. Sean Zubox had some very strong opinions about Vanilla Sky, and he gave a decent-sized review. I would recommend go checking it out. I read it. I obviously wildly disagree with you, Sean. But I totally respect your opinion,
did he rate it?
and I will give you a dislike.
I gave it a bogus.
Hell yeah.
Gotcha.
I like it.
But yeah,
He
no,
gave it a
It's a
23%.
power
he gave it a
move.
23%.
23.
He is right on the cusp of being heinous. So he
Yeah.
really disliked this movie. But I don't agree with him. But you know that's fine. That's what we're about at Criticless, and that's totally okay. And I just disliked you live, which has never been done before. You're welcome. You get the very first.
Yeah, because
You're welcome.
no other social platforms allow
Hardly
you
let you
to
do dislikes.
Download. Name
Yeah.
one
I know. I
other.
can't think of any other right now currently that's letting us. Because YouTube got rid of it, obviously,
Yeah, that
and
was like
Instagram
2
and all the
years
others.
ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just heartsies, no downvotes.
Yeah,
no,
God forbid you dislike
You
something.
can downvote, but it
Yeah,
only
God
shows
forbid.
up the person who posts.
Right,
So
exactly.
it's not-
So, yeah, I mean, and then the other 3 are most excellents, and clearly we're going to have 1, possibly 2. And Chris, it sounded like you put it in the most excellent zone as well.
Yeah. No,
So-
it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like it's going to stay up in that area, and I hope, obviously, if you've seen it already, that you go into Criticless and review it as well, and let us know what you think. I did want to find, so the critics' consensus on Rotten Tomatoes is that an ambitious mix of genres, Vanilla Sky, collapses into an incoherent jumble. Cruise's performance lacks depth, which is fucking an insane, retarded statement. I'm sorry. Like,
We're
it
bringing out
is-
the R word.
Yes, that is what it brings out in me, because that is an insane statement. I think this is one of his best performances with plenty of depth. Like, you're insane.
Yeah.
And, like, what are you talking about?
As far as depth, like depth is the opposite, or lack of depth is the opposite of what this is. Like
Right.
it covers the complete gambit. As
If
far
anything,
as,
I would
like,
complain about being
happiness,
too
joy.
complex.
Yeah, like he goes from like being the stereotypical joyous bachelor person to being like almost psychosis, depressed,
right?
So like, and everything in between, like
totally.
So depth is, or lack of depth is the worst description,
right? And I mean, and you know, it says it's hard to feel sympathy for this narcissistic character, and it's just like I mean, I guess for some people, but
the payoff, that's my thing. It's like almost every problem I have with this movie, once you get the payoff,
right?
I am like, oh, well, I forgive all this. This is all in his head. Like, he's in cryo, so him. Because, like, for me, I was like, oh, his acting was... I didn't really like his acting when he was, like, in the psych ward or the prison.
Right.
And I was like, oh, that's just because he's in his head talking to himself.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So it's just like... And he's talking to, like, an alter ego father character.
Right.
And so I'm like, oh, well, okay. Makes sense.
Right. I don't understand what is not to understand about this. I just feel like what's happening to these critics that they aren't understanding this movie. And now this is an older film, so it's going to be further back in Rotten Tomatoes history, but this still has 174 critics. That's a decent amount for Rotten Tomatoes. So I just kind of personally, for all of these people saying that it's like confusing or whatever, I'm just really questioning intelligence here.
Like, did you actually watch the whole movie?
Right,
Did
like,
you
did you watch the
it
same movie?
Explains itself
right.
completely.
It's pretty easy to understand.
It's a trigger warning. The Twin Towers are in the
background.
So.
That is true. So I pulled up the Rotten, obviously, since this movie is more rotten than anything. And it's like Crow's baby boomer fantasies, tinkles with notions like jostled perfume counter. Like, what?
You're just saying random words. Like,
yeah, that was legitimately random.
Jingle,
this person,
Jingleheimer Smith.
Jingleheimer Smith? Yeah. Well, like this guy says, didn't make any more sense now than it did in 2001. Let me be completely clear. If you don't understand this, you have a problem. I don't understand why.
Strong.
But with me ending on that note, we also need to end this podcast because I think that my camera is going to die. Yeah. So we're going to go ahead and button this thing up. Yes, R.I.P. Real quick, we're going to do our send-off songs, what we like with songs that we are currently listening to.
Music.
Sorry, I've been jostled here with what's going on with my camera, and it's blinking at me. But the song I was going to recommend was by Sigur, which is 7. There's a G and then Englar. They use another language that they made up.
Swedish.
They're Swedish, but also I think that their language is also made up.
Oh.
From what I've heard,
really?
is that the way that they sing is a completely made up language by them. That's what I've heard, anyways. So this song is in the movie. It's excellent, and so I recommend it here. So Matt, what do you got?
Sure. So Mike Shinoda is still putting out music.
Sweet.
He was famed from Linkin Park and Fort Minor.
Yep.
And his newest song, Already Over, is pretty sick.
Awesome.
So it's kind of like a rap
Already Ogre?
song. Already Over.
Already over. And Chris, what do you got?
I have a song by Everything.
Yeah.
And it's called Your Money, My Summer. It's a poppy song. I think it's a fairly popular band.
Okay.
People have related it to like Coldplay.
Okay.
Okay. So, don't hold it against them too much, but yeah, I enjoy it, and I think it goes pretty good. At least this one song.
All right.
And Matt's going to close it out for everybody because my camera has officially bit the dust.
Oh, Blaine's dead. We killed him.
Yep.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you for joining us this week. Check out our other 2 reviews that are up. You'll see Dune 2 and Lisa Frankenstein, or as Chris likes to call it, Anne Frankenstein. And then we will be dropping some more reviews soon. So, peace out.
Thanks,
love,
guys.
everybody.
Later.
Deuces.
Yeah, my camera gives a warning. It turns yellow. The crazy thing is not that hot, and I don't think the battery's dead.